welcome to the Madeleine Knit Along. I'm Janica Garter, and I designed this wrap, and I'd like to take a moment to start showing you the different stages it takes to complete this project. I'm going to be using a shorter amount of stitches than the pattern calls on, simply because I don't want you sitting here waiting for me for ages and ages to get through a single row. So I've cast on a shorter amount, a smaller amount of stitches, but and gone ahead and done knit the first row as the instructions say. So we'll begin with garter stitch rows. This will actually help create an edge that won't curl on you, and it'll also give us a chance to learn how to do the shaping at the beginning and end of each right side row. I've designed this to be on the bias so that you are increasing stitches on this side and decreasing stitches on this side, and that will give your overall wrap while maintaining the same number of stitches throughout each portion of the stitch designs. It'll give it a nice angled shape and give you some lovely points on either end. So let's begin. I like to just knit the first stitch, keeps your edge looking a little bit more uniform and neat, and do your increase in the second stitch. So we will do a knit in the front and back. To do that, you knit into the stitch, but you don't take it off the needle. You bring your right hand needle around to the back and put it in the back loop and knit again. You've now created two stitches where there were one originally. And of course, for garter stitch rows, we simply knit across. We want to knit across until we get to our last three stitches. Again, I like to do the increases and the decreases just before the last stitch or just after the first stitch so that those edge stitches stay relatively uniform. This helps keep your edge looking a bit more finished if you're not going to be sewing it together in something. If you are seaming something together, I still like to do it because I think it's easier to stitch into that selvage edge where the stitch is a normal stitch rather than an increased or decreased stitch. So as you can see, now that we're at the last three stitches, we will knit two together. Instead of knitting into just one stitch, we knit into both of them, and now we've decreased our stitch count. That makes up for the increase on this end. Finish with that last stitch. Now, because of the nature of the increases and decreases, I do actually start my wrong side row with a purl stitch first, but then I knit across. So your purl side will be your wrong side row will have a simpler time of it. You don't have to worry about increasing or decreasing. You will only do your increases and decreases on the right side rows. When you get done with this row, you'll see that you still have the same number of stitches, but everything is going to be shifted over by one. See, we're at the end, but we just knit across. When we go back to row 2, we'll begin our shaping again. I'll pause now and finish several garter stitch rows before we get into section 1's patterning. So pause the video with me if you wish, and you can go ahead and get in all of your garter rows. We have 12 garter rows in the pattern, so that's 24 rows of knitting total. I'll just do a few just to give you the idea. Okay, I've done a few more rows of garter stitch, and you can start to see the shaping, particularly on this side where we're doing the decreases. You can see how it's starting to point out a little bit and give us our slant this direction. It's not as pronounced looking on the increase side. I don't know why that is in the beginning. It always looks like it's working on one side and not the other, even when you count the stitches and know it's exactly the same. But the further along you go, the more it will even out and look balanced. I suppose it's just the malleable nature of yarn. So we shall begin with section 1. We will begin all our rows the same way, where we knit our first stitch and then knit into the front and into the back of the next stitch. Now, section 1 is an 8 stitch repeat. It is a purl 4, knit 4, or knit 4, purl 4 combination that's going to give us a checkerboard sort of pattern. Because we are increasing on this side and decreasing on this side, the number of stitches that you knit or purl to begin each section varies. Don't worry, we've done the math for you, so you don't have to worry about that. For row 1, we start with just 3 knit stitches. So there's 3. Then we have 4 purl stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Knit 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then purl 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll repeat that one more time where we knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and purl 1, 2, 3, 4. That takes us to our last 3 stitches, which we always knit 2 together and then knit the last one. When we flip to our wrong side row, we start with our purl 1 and our knit 1. Now, we are going to knit and purl the stitches as they present themselves. These first 4 stitches on the right side were purls, so here they present as knits. So we will knit them 1, 2, 3, 4. And these 4 stitches present, you can see the little bumps here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Since they look like purls on this side, we will purl them on this side. 2, 3, 4. So clearly you'll be doing your knit 4, purl 4 on your wrong side row. Again, just starting at different stages depending on the shaping and whether or not you ended on purls or knits in your previous block. Come here to our last 4 in the pattern of knit, and then we had purls because we had 3 knits to begin, if you remember, on this particular row. And then we can knit across the last stitches. Let me make sure. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4 purls. Knit the last 2 stitches. When you flip over to your right side row, you will start to see that the little blocks are starting to form. You have a little knit block started here and a little purl block started here. This is a 4x4 checkerboard pattern, so you're going to do this 2 more times, and then, actually, let's take a look. You'll go back and forth 1 time, and then you will reverse what you're doing, and on row 5, you will actually, on the front side, you will purl where you had knits, knit where you had purls, and that will create the checkerboard. Let me get that row done for you so that you can see how we do row 5. All right, I've got rows 3 and 4 done as well now so that you can see we have a little block here of 4 by 4 knit stitches and 4 by 4 purl stitches. To begin row 5, as we always do, knit 1 and knit in the front and the back of the stitch. Now we'll go ahead and knit this first stitch, and you'll see that you have 4 knit stitches coming up. Because we want to change the checkerboard, we're going to purl those 4 stitches instead of knit. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now those 4 purl stitches, we will knit those. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to purl. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then knit. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Purl. 1, 2, 3, 4, and knit. 1, 2. We only knit 2 that time because now we're already at our end shaping, and we will knit 2 together. There we go. And then knit the last stitch. On the wrong side, we begin with a purl and a knit, as we do most times. Now we go back to stitching as presented. So the first stitches present as purl stitches. So we will go ahead and purl those. And then the next 4 stitches present as knit stitches. So we will knit those. 2, 3, and 4. So your wrong side rows, you always approach the stitch as it presents. You will only do the opposite on rows 5 and 9, and you get it every 4 rows after that. So that will create your checkerboard. I will again pause the taping so that I can do a few more rows to show you what the overall effect looks like. I've now completed the first 12 rows, which gives you a little bit better idea of how the checkerboard comes along. I have topped it with a couple of garter stitch rows. Each pattern section will be separated by a few garter stitch rows so that you'll be in preparation for the next step with just a nice straightforward clear line between one pattern stitch and the other. So I hope that you have enjoyed working on section 1, and I look forward to showing you how to do section 2.